Imagine this. A bonus finally lands in your bank account. Maybe it's $2,000. Maybe it's $5,000. It arrives on a Friday afternoon, and within minutes, your mind begins building a shopping list. A new watch, a vacation you've been postponing, an apartment upgrade, furniture you've wanted for months. Before the day is over, you've mentally spent nearly all of it. By the weekend, purchases have already been made. Within a few months, the money has disappeared completely. Now compare that to another scenario. A 26-year-old woman receives almost the exact same amount of money. The difference is that her payment comes from a family trust established decades earlier by her great-grandfather. Within hours, she transfers nearly all of it into long-term investments. She doesn't celebrate publicly. She doesn't tell friends. She doesn't post about it online. Instead, she treats the money as something she is temporarily responsible for rather than something she personally owns. That difference in behavior explains why some families remain wealthy for centuries, while others lose everything within a few generations. The difference isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It isn't education in the traditional sense. It's a world view, a framework, a philosophy about money that gets passed from one generation to the next. Some people call it the old money mindset. Others call it stewardship. Whatever name you use, it remains one of the most powerful financial frameworks ever developed, and almost nobody learns it from modern culture. In this video, we'll explore exactly what that mindset looks like, why most fortunes disappear within 3 generations, and how anyone can begin applying these principles regardless of their current income. Before understanding how wealth survives, we need to understand why it usually doesn't. Research consistently shows a shocking pattern. Approximately 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation. Around 90% lose it by the third. Think about that for a moment. Out of every 100 families that successfully build significant wealth, only about 10 manage to preserve it beyond their grandchildren. This pattern appears across cultures, countries, tax systems, and historical periods. The explanation is surprisingly simple. The first generation creates the wealth. They work relentlessly. They sacrifice. They save because they have no alternative. They understand exactly how difficult money is to earn. The second generation grows up around wealth, but still witnesses the struggle that created it. They inherit some of the habits and values that built the fortune. The third generation experiences something entirely different. They never saw the sacrifice. They never experienced scarcity. The wealth simply exists. To them, money feels permanent, natural, guaranteed. And that assumption becomes the beginning of financial decline. The families that successfully preserve wealth develop systems, habits, and beliefs specifically designed to prevent this process. Those systems form the foundation of the old money mindset. The first pillar is stewardship. Old money families do not view themselves as owners. They view themselves as caretakers. The wealth existed before them. The wealth should exist after them. Their responsibility is to pass it forward stronger than they received it. This changes every financial decision. Instead of asking, "What do I want today?" they ask, "What serves this asset best over the next 50 years?" The second pillar is generational time horizons. Most people think in weeks, months, or years. Old money thinks in decades and generations. A retirement account is not the finish line. A family legacy is. When investments are given enough time, compound interest becomes extraordinary. The greatest advantage isn't stock selection. It isn't market timing. It's uninterrupted time. Families that preserve wealth understand this deeply. They don't constantly interrupt compounding. They simply allow it to work. The third pillar is quiet preservation. Modern culture rewards visible success, luxury cars, designer brands, large homes, social media displays. Old money culture views most of these things differently. Every dollar spent proving wealth is a dollar removed from future growth. True wealth often looks surprisingly ordinary. Many millionaires drive practical vehicles, live in modest neighborhoods, wear simple clothing. The goal isn't appearance. The goal is preservation, and preservation consistently outperforms performance. The fourth pillar is deliberate financial education. Most families never teach money. They assume schools will handle it. Schools rarely do. Old money families treat financial literacy as a core responsibility. Children learn early. They observe conversations. They participate in discussions. They gradually learn how assets are managed. Financial education becomes apprenticeship rather than theory. The fifth pillar is family-first thinking. Modern society emphasizes the individual. Old money emphasizes the family unit. Major financial decisions are evaluated through a wider lens. How does this decision affect future generations? How does it impact family stability? How does it influence long-term preservation? This mindset creates a powerful support network where resources, knowledge, and opportunities compound alongside money itself. The sixth pillar is living below your means. This sounds simple. Few people actually practice it. New wealth often expands lifestyle immediately. Higher income leads to higher spending. Old money operates differently. The gap between what they can afford and what they choose to spend becomes the source of future wealth. That gap gets invested, compounded, protected, and over decades, it becomes enormous. Lifestyle inflation destroys more fortunes than investment mistakes ever do. The seventh pillar is suspicion toward debt. Old money families have access to large amounts of credit, yet they often borrow less than average households. Consumer debt is viewed as a threat, not a convenience. Debt is used only when it clearly creates productive value. Every dollar paid in interest is a dollar removed from future compounding. The eighth pillar is ownership of productive assets. Old money portfolios are famously boring. Broad stock market investments, quality real estate, strong businesses, cash reserves. That's usually enough. There is little interest in speculation, little interest in trends, little interest in chasing the latest financial excitement. The goal isn't excitement, it's durability. The ninth pillar is maintaining a strong relationship with work. Contrary to popular stereotypes, families that successfully preserve wealth rarely raise generations that avoid work. They work, they contribute, they build. Work creates discipline, responsibility, perspective. Without work, entitlement grows. With work, stewardship survives. The wealth remains because the values remain. The 10th pillar is structured giving. Successful families often approach philanthropy strategically, not emotionally, not impulsively. They support causes consistently, build foundations, create long-term impact. Giving becomes part of the family's identity and financial architecture. The 11th pillar is privacy. Privacy is not modesty. Privacy is protection. Visible wealth attracts attention. Attention attracts risk. Old money families understand that privacy preserves assets, relationships, and opportunities. The less people know about your finances, the fewer complications enter your life. The 12th pillar is governance. The most successful families operate almost like institutions. They establish systems, create guidelines, document values, hold regular discussions, prepare future generations. Wealth preservation rarely happens accidentally. It happens because families intentionally create structures that survive individual personalities and changing circumstances. Systems outlast people, and systems preserve wealth. Now comes the most important question. What if you didn't grow up in an old money family? What if you're building wealth for the very first time? The answer is surprisingly encouraging. The mindset is free. You don't need millions of dollars to think like a steward. You don't need a trust fund to think generationally. You don't need inherited wealth to value privacy, discipline, education, or long-term investing. Every principle we've discussed can be applied immediately. You can start viewing money as something to protect rather than consume. You can extend your time horizon. You can avoid unnecessary debt. You can invest consistently. You can educate yourself. You can prioritize family. You can build systems. You can become the first generation of a future legacy. Every old money family began with someone who wasn't old money yet. Someone decided to think differently. Someone chose preservation over consumption. Someone created a framework strong enough to survive their lifetime. The same opportunity exists today. The real secret was never the money. The secret was the mindset. Money follows behavior. Behavior follows beliefs. And beliefs, repeated consistently across decades, become legacy. One day, your descendants may tell stories about the person who started it all. The question is whether that person will be you. The next bonus that lands in your account will provide the answer. Because wealth isn't determined by what money comes in. It's determined by what happens after it arrives. And that choice has always belonged to you.